Welcome back to NSEN. Look who it is, everyone. It's Jordan Powell here to join us for a little debate segment. Obviously, the big sports news of the day was the introductory press conference of Tim Tebow, the newest New York Jet. And I'm going to go to Jordan on this one. Do you think Tim Tebow is a good fit for the New York Jets?
You know, I'm not totally sure. With the leadership issues that Mark Sanchez has with the team, I think that Tebow would be a good fit. Maybe drive Sanchez to maybe step up as a leader instead of having Tebow take the reins like he did in Denver.
Okay. I know Channing is a pretty professed Tim Tebow fan, but how do you think about – what do you think about Tim Tebow in New York?
I think that the Jets have a lot of talent, and Mark Sanchez has led the Jets to 2 AFC championships. They lost both of them. The first one he took them to, he had twice as many interceptions as touchdowns. Tebow, in 2 years as a starter, has 17 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And the Jets averaged less than 4 yards a carry on the season last year, one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL. Denver led the NFL in rushing behind Tim Tebow, and Tebow ran for 660 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. So I think that the media in New York is so bad, and backup quarterback in football is the best position to play when the crowd thinks that you should be starting, because they're going to be rallying behind Tebow. Tebow's a very popular figure, and right now the most popular figure in all of sports. So as soon as Sanchez starts struggling, game 3 or 4, they're going to put Tebow in. As soon as Tebow scores a touchdown or 2 in the red zone in that Wildcat formation, the fans are going to get behind Tebow. The locker room already has no faith in Sanchez, as we saw after last season. So I think it's kind of, I don't know why they would give him a 2-year extension, but I think Tebow will be the starter week 4, week 5 in New York.
What do you think? What do you think, Jordan? Do you think that Tim Tebow is more of a wildcat quarterback now in New York, or do you think he actually has a shot at taking Mark Sanchez's job?
I see that since New York is a run-first team, I feel like he does have the potential to take over Mark Sanchez's job if they keep with the run first. But they have Santonio Holmes and other big receivers, and they could keep Sanchez in if he decides to step up as a leader and a passer.
Okay.
Well, as we saw last year, Sanchez is clearly not a leader. They said he wants to be babied in practice. He can't take criticism. His defense isn't behind him, and he chokes in clutch situations. He took a team that went to 2 AFC championships in a row and couldn't win 9 games with them last year with a top 3 defense in the NFL.
I don't think you can actually put all of the failures of the New York Jets season last season on the shoulders of Mark Sanchez.
With Santonio Holmes, Plaxico Burress, Justin Keller, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Sean Green as his weapons, Tebow didn't have any kind of weapons, and he took Denver to the playoffs.
Okay. Staying in the NFL, last week Roger Goodell dropped the ban hammer on the Saints for their bounty scandals. I'm going to start with you, Channing. What do you think? What do you think of the penalties?
Obviously, I've never heard of anything like this in the NFL before. I think that a whole year suspension is a little harsh. Sean Payton has never had any issues off the field. They said that he was aware. The league made aware that he was doing that they were doing this, running this illegal rink, whatever you want to call it, of paying players to knock players out, to give them concussions, to hit players below the knees. And I mean, that's career-ending injuries. And as big and strong as players are in the NFL these days, that can be very dangerous. And the mental problems that they're having post-NFL career, I think that they need to individually look at all the players that bought into this and suspend those guys, and suspend Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator that went to St. Louis to follow his buddy Jeff Fisher. They say Sean Payton's going to appeal to 8 games, but I mean, I think that's a little harsh, but I think all these guys need to be suspended at least half the season.
What about you, Jordan? What do you think about the penalties?
Well, I agree with the Sean Payton penalty. I think that is absolutely just, because as the head coach, you know about what's going on in your staff and with the players as well. So he had to have known about the bounty.
He is more of an offensive guy, though. They said he didn't spend a whole lot of time at defensive practice.
Well, that may be true, but that doesn't mean that he didn't know about the bounty. And as a coach and not doing anything to stop it, he is encouraging it by doing nothing. So I think the 1-year suspension is good for him, and I don't think it's necessarily good for the team, but it will be in the long run as they learn to mature and to not do silly things like a bounty.
But let me say this. Okay, say the appeal doesn't go through and he's suspended the entire season. So this puts the Saints in a bad position because Steve Spagnuolo, the Rams coach from last year, is their defensive coordinator. So he has head coaching experience, and if you get a head coach in staff, then there's not going to be a disruption next season when Peyton comes back. So Peyton personally went out reportedly and talked to Bill Parcells and wanted him to come in and coach for a year. And the Saints are currently working on terms of negotiation to bring in Parcells. Think about how that could disrupt the team. If Parcells gets in there with his big ego and, maybe the players rally more around him, and then where's Sean Payton's place next season?
Well, I don't think Bill Parcells at his age, I don't even think with his ego that he would think that he was going to take over the Saints long term. But I'm going to go back to Jordan here. We talked about Greg Williams. He got suspended indefinitely. So you have to think that it's at least a year since that's what Sean Payton got. Do you think that we've seen the last of Greg Williams as an NFL defensive coordinator?
I don't totally think so because, like he said, he's going to work for Jeff Fisher in St. Louis, and those two have worked together for a long time, and they know each other. But I don't think that Jeff Fisher will put up with any bounty ridiculousness.
But do you think Roger Goodell lets him back in the league?
I'd say so.
What about you, Chad?
Goodell's a dictator. He's let his presence known since he became the commissioner in the NFL, and I think that's good to have a little bit more of a disciplinarian commissioner than commissioners of old. But say that more injuries that are linked to this scandal they were running, the potential for Greg Williams to be suspended for more years than this and for Jeff Fisher to lose faith in him and to have a bad reputation around the league is possible. He could get tagged as a dirty defensive coordinator.
Exactly. One of the things that hasn't come out yet, though, is the suspension terms for players that were involved. You heard reportedly Jonathan Vilma put up $10,000 in the NFC Championship game a couple years ago for whoever could take Brett Favre out. How long do you think that any of the Saints players will be getting suspensions?
I think that some of them, especially Vilma, who put up $10,000 for Brett Favre. If you watch the NFC game that year, they beat up Brett Favre.
Exactly.
He got beat up, and I think that forced his retirement. Honestly, was him getting beat up in that NFC game and then coming back the next season and just not being able to do it. And I think that's what pushed him over the edge for his retirement.
What about you, Channing? Do you think a year for Jonathan Vilma is fair?
Well, the beauty of football is how violent of a sport it is. It's one of the most contact sports we have. And that's what makes it exciting. But when do we lose our sportsmanship to say, let's go out and hurt this guy? I mean, this guy's got a family. Everybody does. I mean, we're human beings. You can say, "I'll go make a good form tackle," but hit him below the knees and tear his MCL, tear his ACL, knock him out. Is that football? Is that sportsmanship? Spend him for at least a year. Kick him out of the NFL.
Exactly. I think we can all agree, though, that there is no place in the NFL for a bounty system like that. Switching gears to baseball, Channing hit on it a little bit earlier. Chipper Jones, during spring training, has announced that he will retire after this season with all of the injuries that he's had piling up over the last couple of seasons. I'm going to start with you, Jordan. Is Chipper Jones a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. He is a first-class player in every respect. He, as he mentioned earlier, he has like 1,500 or 15,000 RBI. Is that
1,500.
Is it 1,500? Mm-hmm. Okay. For some reason, I thought it was more absurd than that. But he is a first-class player. The Braves are built around him. I feel that he is their rock on the team.
Exactly. He's sort of like their Derek Jeter.
Right. Absolutely.
What about you, Channing?
When you think of the Braves in the 90s, you think of TBS, and everybody around the nation got to check out Braves baseball. Yeah. And we had amazing pitching stats, but what's the common denominator of the 14 straight division titles? It's simply Chipper Jones. I mean, with a career 300-plus hitter, 46 home run shy of 500, which is the staple in baseball for the Hall of Fame. In baseball, it has the most prestigious Hall of Fame of any sport. So I think Chipper's the first ballot Hall of Famer, which means that 5 years after he retires, I think he'll have at least 80% of the vote to go to the Hall of Fame. Chipper led the Braves to a World Series championship, 5 appearances. I mean, and he's a switch hitter, arguably the second best switch hitter of all time behind Mickey Mantle. Right. I mean, I don't know how you can't argue that Chipper's a guaranteed Hall of Famer.
Okay, going back to you, Jordan. With him playing in the steroid era, you've seen writers not voting in guys that they were suspected steroid users.
Right.
Do you think that Chipper Jones, having not ever had those suspicions about him, that helps his case?
I think absolutely, because peer pressure of doing steroids during that time with other players succeeding far beyond other players in the league who weren't doing steroids. And then you think about Chipper Jones, who has had success of that level without using steroids. I think that's absolutely on his side for the Hall of Fame.
What about you, Channing?
I mean, when of all these years of speculation, of all the names we've heard, the Mitchell report, all the players that came to be proven to be taking steroids, Chipper Jones' name never was once mentioned.
Right.
And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Because that sends a good message to the kids growing up that you don't have to take steroids to be successful in professional athletics. So, Chipper Jones has been a role model. He's always been a class act. You never hear him getting in trouble off the field. And besides that, I mean, he's been a heck of a baseball player for the last 19 years.
Now, you're a Braves fan. Obviously, Chipper steps out. Do you think he steps into a coaching role, maybe a front office gig with the Braves as soon as he retires?
Maybe. He kind of has that personality like Bobby Cox, that laid-back country personality. He's kind of quiet, though, so maybe that's not his cup of tea. I could see Chipper on a farm hunting somewhere down in South Georgia in the near future.
What about you? Do you think coaching or front office management is in Chipper Jones' future?
I think maybe a coaching job, maybe a front office job. I think definitely he will still be involved in the Braves franchise for sure after he retires, because he's just been such a, I don't want to say motivational spirit, but definitely one that the whole team can get around for sure.
Well, definitely. One thing that you can say about the Atlanta Braves is that they take care of their own. You see Bobby Cox still around, all of these guys still around. So I would expect Chipper Jones to be the same way. So my thank you to Jordan Powell from Fantasy Zone. Great debate segment, and we'll be right back with more NSEN right after this. Welcome back to your one-stop shop for all things sports, NSEN. For more than a year now, it's been assumed that Stanford quarterback Andrew Luck would be the first pick in the 2012 NFL Draft, but now some analysts are thinking that may not be the case. Baylor quarterback Robert Griffin III held his pro day workout last week, where he wowed scouts and analysts alike. The 2012 Heisman Trophy winner unofficially completed 74 out of a possible 78 passes and displayed no problems with taking snaps from under center, something he didn't do often at Baylor. Griffin is slotted by most analysts to be picked number 2 in the NFL Draft by the Washington Redskins, who traded 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick for the opportunity to draft him. However, after his impressive combine and pro day, an increasing number of analysts are saying they would pick Griffin over the presumed number 1 pick, Stanford quarterback Andrew Luck. Now let me pose that question to you, Channing. If you were in the front office of the Indianapolis Colts, do you take RG3 or do you take Andrew Luck?
This may shock you. I would take RG3. And I know that Mel Kiper said that Andrew Luck is the best quarterback that he's seen since John Elway coming out of college. Better than Peyton, Favre, Rodgers, Young, Montana, which is, is a biased opinion. But RG3 runs a 4.41. And they say, his arm strength. He led the country in completion percentage and led the country in completion percentage more than 20 yards, which is a big deal. And people say, well, Andrew Luck had no talent around him. Well, RG3 had no talent around him either.
Well, at the very least, you could say that Kendall Wright is going to be a first-round pick in the draft. He is a legitimate NFL receiver. I agree with you that neither really had much talent, and I think that both are going to be great NFL quarterbacks. So the Colts and the Redskins are pretty much salivating right now at the thought of drafting either of those guys.
No-brainer 1 and 2 picks. I mean, mark it down, sign the contracts. It'll be interesting to see who does better. But my personal opinion, I'd like to see is the dark horse, RG3, to come out of the gates running a little faster than Andrew Luck.
Yeah, seeing him in that dome in Indianapolis, that'd be pretty great. The Final Four has been set. You got Louisville, you got Kentucky, you got Ohio State, and you got Kansas. Channing, who's your national champion pick?
Well, Louisville knocked out my Gators on Saturday. I think that Kentucky is so far and beyond more talented than the other 3 teams left in the tournament. Granted, anything can happen in college basketball, but I think Kentucky, talent-wise, dominates Louisville. It's going to be interesting because Pitino's a legendary coach at UK. It's a Bluegrass State battle, but I pick Kentucky. What about you?
I would actually have to agree. I'm picking Kentucky, although I can see with so much youth. You saw it at Memphis a couple of times when they got beat by Kansas when they had Derrick Rose and that great team at Memphis. John Calipari coached teams do seem to have mental lapses from time to time, but I think that this Kentucky team is different. They've been the best team in the country all throughout the year, and I think this is their year.
And they've dominated the tournament. I mean, Baylor's a very good team, and they had Percy Jones III and AC are two big-time power forwards, and they didn't slow down Kentucky's bigs at all.
Not at all.
And Memphis's Achilles heel was youth, like you just said, and this team seems to be a little bit more experienced with Lamb and Jones being sophomores. Yeah. Granted, they do have a lot of freshmen, but it was free throws. Came down to the stretch up by 9 in the last minute and missed all their free throws against Kansas in the national championship about 5 years back. Calipari said that he runs his kids after every tournament game. He runs them 30 suicides for every free throw they miss.
Wow.
So they only missed 2 free throws against Baylor. So that Achilles heel is pretty much cured.
I think the talent of Kentucky this season, you see it with sort of a blending of 2 recruiting classes because you know Calipari is always going to recruit. And that's it for us here at NSEN. We hope you will join us next week. Have a great night.